Now, it's not just India that has been irked by Trump's offer to mediate on the Kashmir dispute. Even within his own country, the president has been ridiculed for his lack of expertise in South Asian politics. Safe to say, the US government is in damage control mode. A statement released from the House of Representatives said that the chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee had in fact spoken to Harshvardhan Shringla, the Indian ambassador to the US. The chairman is said to have reiterated America's position on supporting dialogue, but firmly stated that the dialogue's pace and scope can only be determined by India and Pakistan, effectively vindicating India's position that Kashmir is a bilateral issue. The chairman also emphasized that if the talks are to be meaningful, then Pakistan must take concrete action against terrorist infrastructure on its soil. The US representative Brad Sherman has called Trump's statement on Kashmir amateurish, delusional and embarrassing. He said, and I quote, "Everyone who knows anything about foreign policy in South Asia knows that India consistently opposes third-party mediation on Kashmir. Everyone knows Prime Minister Modi would never suggest such a thing." The White House also released a statement after the meeting between the President and the Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan. Despite Trump's bold claim that the Indian Prime Minister asked him to mediate in the Kashmir dispute, the House press release has no mention of Kashmir or an offer to mediate. This clearly seems to suggest that the President and his own administration are not on the same page when it comes to Kashmir. Our Pakistan Bureau Chief Anas Malik, who is in Washington, sent us this report.
Well, yes, the Pakistani Prime Minister and meeting between the United States President Donald J. Trump, it took place yesterday at the White House, but it was surrounded by a lot of controversies, particularly on the issue of Kashmir. The United States President has claimed that the Indian Prime Minister had asked him to mediate 2 weeks ago while referring to the G20 summit, his meeting at the G20 summit, something that has been refrained by New Delhi, strongly refrained by New Delhi. But what is to be looked out at is that a while from now, the Pakistani Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi, while addressing a press conference, he was insistent, rather adamant, that this has been talked about, this mediation offer has been requested, and that the Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan, during his meeting with US President Donald Trump, has briefed him on the Kashmir conflict or on the Kashmir dispute. The Pakistani Prime Minister, during an interview as well to the American media outlet, he said that since India does not want to sit down and solve this issue bilaterally, therefore it would be Pakistan would not mind that if POTUS or the United States President, for that matter, intervenes or mediates in this. But if we talk about Pakistan's position, Pakistan has previously expressed its desire that a third-party mediation would not be discouraged, and these comments from the United States President Donald Trump in context of the Kashmir conflict and mediation are certainly welcomed here in DC and by the Pakistani dispensation by and large. For WION, from Washington DC, Anas Malik, World is One.
All right, joining us to talk a little bit more about this is Brahma Chellaney, Professor of Strategic Studies at the Center of Policy Research. Brahma Chellaney, thanks very much indeed for talking to us this afternoon. Your first thoughts as you heard Donald Trump speak there, sitting next to Imran Khan, saying that he's ready to mediate and that he spoke to the Prime Minister, who was very keen on that. Of course, India categorically denying any such conversation ever happened.
When I heard President Trump talk about this last night, and referred to Prime Minister Modi having made that offer, I couldn't believe it, because Mr. Modi would never make that offer. In fact, no Indian leader would ever make that offer. There is a bipartisan consensus in India that this issue should be resolved bilaterally with Pakistan. So we've had governments in India, governments formed by different parties, but they've all held to the same position that this issue can only be discussed and settled bilaterally. In fact, the Shimla Treaty enunciates this principle, and no Indian government can afford to turn its back on that treaty, because the Shimla Treaty is the basis of subcontinental peace. No government in India can afford to discard the Shimla Treaty.
Right. So what do you think triggered Donald Trump to say this? Is he just being himself, or is this something which he offered Pakistan in return for Pakistan's cooperation and collaboration in Afghanistan? What do you think was the context of what Donald Trump said?
Well, nobody can make out as to why he made this false claim about Modi having proposed U.S. mediation. As far as why Trump is wooing Pakistan, it's very apparent, as he said himself last night, that he wants Pakistan's help so that we can extricate ourselves from Afghanistan. These were his words, extricate ourselves. So it's very clear that he believes that Pakistan can help the United States to leave Afghanistan. The irony is that the war in Afghanistan has gone on for nearly 20 years because of Pakistan. It's because of Pakistan's sponsorship of cross-border terrorism, its sponsorship of the Afghan Taliban. That is the reason why the U.S. military is now bogged down in a quagmire in Afghanistan. The Americans have waged war on the wrong side of the Durand line.
Yes.
The real war should have been waged against the sponsor of the Afghan Taliban, which is Pakistan. So look at the irony of it, that Pakistan wages war, indirect war against U.S. forces in Afghanistan, and now the Americans are seeking to reward Pakistan so that they can extricate themselves from Afghanistan. And what are the rewards that Trump is offering? He has recently given Pakistan $6 billion in IMF bailout. The U.S. has a veto power over IMF decisions. So they could have easily blocked IMF bailout for Pakistan, but they gave that bailout as a reward. Then just recently, earlier this month, the U.S. designated the main Baluch separatist group as a terrorist group. Now this was a big diplomatic victory for Pakistan. It neutralizes India's gain from the earlier UN listing of Masood Assad as a terrorist.
Yes.
And the last reward is rehyphenating India with Pakistan and seeking to mediate in the Kashmir conflict.
Right. And this is, of course, a statement of Donald Trump that has now the whole of the U.S. administration seems to have distanced themselves from the House of Representatives. Chairman has, of course, also pointed out how anybody with any knowledge of South Asia would not say, not ask to mediate between India and Pakistan when it comes to Kashmir, knowing India's categorical position on this. Brahma Chellaney, and of course, in that joint statement that came out later between Pakistan and US, there was no mention of this offer either.
Well, you're right, but I think one has to be a little cautious. First is that when the US president makes a statement, it was not a passing statement. He went on and on and on at that meeting with the reporters. And he referred to Kashmir not once, but several times. It's very difficult for the administration then to completely distance itself from the president's remarks because the president sets the policy. So the U.S. State Department tweet that came later as a sort of clarification did not distance the U.S. government from Trump's remarks. The State Department said that although Kashmir is a bilateral issue, the U.S. is ready to assist India and Pakistan. So in effect, underscoring that the U.S. is willing to play the role of a mediator or a facilitator in the Kashmir dispute, something that is anathema to India. In fact, President Trump's remarks were like a red rag to the bull. So the fact that the joint statement between Trump and Imran Khan made no mention of the Kashmir issue is because the joint statement had been prepared much earlier. Normally such joint statements are prepared by bureaucrats much before two leaders meet. So obviously that joint statement had no reference to Kashmir. But the president's remarks have done the damage.
Right. Absolutely, they have done the damage. Brahma Chellaney, well, the other aspect of this was, of course, that the Pakistani Prime Minister sitting next to Donald Trump welcomed the decision. They've always tried to, break that bilateral dialogue between India and Pakistan on Kashmir and wanted other parties to engage in this as well, including the United States. In every meeting, Imran Khan or any other Prime Minister from the past has brought that up.
Definitely. I think, for President Trump to host Imran Khan was, in a way, bestowing legitimacy on a figure who is called selected prime minister in his own country, a reference to how the military helped to bring him to power. Imran Khan is one of the weakest prime ministers Pakistan has ever had. He is very servile in his fealty to the military. He's more loyal than the king. And by hosting Imran Khan at the White House, Trump was legitimizing the military's role. In fact, isn't it paradoxical that the army chief of Pakistan and the ISI head chaperoned Imran Khan on his US visit and were present at the White House meeting, underscoring that the real power in Pakistan lies with the military generals who control all strategic policy decisions in that country. So it was very interesting that the Americans ensured that the real decision makers in Pakistan, the army chief and the ISI chief, were present at the White House meeting so that they could discuss real issues.
Right. Absolutely, Brahma Chellaney. A very important point there that all through the meeting, of course, there's also the ISI chief and the army chief were also there in Washington all through. We didn't really see the foreign minister anywhere. And of course, Pakistan Prime Minister is known to take all his decisions along with the army chief. Brahma Chellaney, thanks very much indeed for joining us this afternoon.